Yeah,
I think when you think of your home and your culture, you do want to ask yourself, like, what do you want people to feel when they enter the door?
Yeah.
What do you want people to feel while they're here, when they leave?
We're like, sir, business or pleasure? Pleasure? Oh, of course. Dare I ask? May I interest you in a saucy bit of avocado?
Easily, the things that you've done and practiced as a single person or as just a married couple, you know, they can just get swept away because it's such a life change to have children.
It was at that moment he realized that I had just put tofu in my mouth for the first time. I had no frame of reference, and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
Is this food? Is this people?
Time for love again. My time for love is here.
Welcome back to Quality Time with Gabe and Grace.
I'm Gabe.
And I'm Grace, and this is episode 7. 7. The number of completion.
Absolutely.
Are we done?
And we're done. End of season.
We're just getting started.
That's right.
So we're back for another week.
Mm-hmm.
Before we jump into this week's content, we're going to kick off with some quality over quantity.
Always.
Again, if you're new to the podcast, this is just a quick segment we like to open our episodes with, where we share something. This is a moment, this is a product, this is some sort of happening or experience that has really been quality. We can just share one, so we're not going to share a whole bunch. Just one thing that's really standing out to us this week. Maybe it's something you want to bring into your own life. It might just be for your entertainment, but either way, do you want to kick us off with your quality over quantity for this week?
Yeah. So again, this is going to be a week removed because it was just special, and I didn't get to say it last week.
Yeah.
Because I was shouting out just any food that didn't come from the hospital last week. And so for those of you who have followed along and you saw that we skipped a week, we had a little bit of a health scare for me, and, feeling great, back at it. But for me, the quality over quantity experience was, after being hospitalized for 2 nights, which is no fun. No one ever likes to be, away from their own home and their own bed. I got discharged on a Sunday. I came home and I had been missing our little guy so badly. That was probably the hardest part, honestly, about being hospitalized. So
he's 6.5 months right now.
Yes, and he is definitely aware of daddy, and we're besties. So I come home, and he sees me, and we had FaceTimed while I was away, so it's not like he didn't see my face for 48 hours or whatever it was. But so I walk in, and he is just like so enamored, but also kind of like almost in disbelief, where he's looking at me and he's like, is it you? And so I grab him and I pick him up and I'm like, oh my God, I love you. I missed you. And he's just putting his little hands on my beard and on my face.
He's like, it's really you.
Yeah. We got some really great pictures where he's just like, Dada, is that you? Just so testing precious. The legitimacy. He's like, is this real? So that was like, and so those photos we got, which we put in black and white, are like the perfect photo. It was just, it's my new wallpaper on my phone.
Yeah.
And I even kicked her out.
I know. It was like, wow, I got the boot.
Yeah,
after,
it's temporary. It's
8
just
years.
It's a special moment. But yeah, that was definitely my quality experience. It was just so special, so sweet, and what a joy to know the love of a little one like that. So
sweet.
It was awesome.
It's so special just being in these early days of parenthood. I feel like every moment is so special, but there are those highlight moments that really stick out, and that was definitely one of them.
Yes.
So for my quality over quantity this week, I'm going to share something on the total different end of the spectrum from your moment. Mine is actually a skincare product.
Okay, nice.
And, being in my new mom era, I am in the era of simplicity. It's about getting up, getting him ready, doing what I can to get myself ready for the day. Yep. It's, simple and easy. But I did start using this new skincare regimen, and it's like a live probiotic skincare, which I really love that concept of sort of working with the microbiota on your skin. And so anyways, there is a product within the lineup that is called longevity oil. And it's just this wonderful oil that you kind of warm up in your hands, pat it into your skin, on your face, and it just like gives my face life. And so for all those other moms out there, or just busy women who maybe aren't doing a full face of makeup in the mornings, but you still want to feel like you have a little sparkle, a little shine. I really enjoy that longevity oil from LaFleur. So it's LAFLORE, LaFleur. not paid, just a fan. So really enjoying that, the whole lineup, but especially if you're going to get one thing, get the longevity oil.
Okay.
So, quality over quantity.
Sounds fancy. All right, I like it.
Every time I use it, I'm like, who could I gift this to? Like, I just feel like it's that good that, when something's so good, you don't want to gatekeep, you want to share.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
like one of those things for me. So I'm always
Nice.
like, oh, I got to put this on the Christmas list for somebody special.
Nice.
So that's quality over quantity for this week. Now let's jump into this week's topic. So
Yes.
I'm excited about this topic. It's something that we have talked about over the years. And I think when we're considering topics to share with our listeners, we're asking ourselves, what are the things that are of value to us in our lives? Like, what are the conversations that we are having and we'd like to share and invite people into to have their own conversations about these topics? So I think it was inevitable that this was going to make the list. And that is creating a culture within your home. So, when you're thinking about culture, you're thinking about customs of a people group, in this case, like a family within a home. So what does life look like? It's basically, what's your way of doing life as a family? So we have a few questions to kind of chat over this week. And hopefully, again, this will inspire you to ask yourself these questions as well. Talk about it with your spouse or sit down as a family and chat about the culture that you want to create within your home.
Yeah, I love this topic because the thing that we've discussed about culture, and this is true both in the home, but also in the workplace as entrepreneurs, we've learned, is that if you don't take intentional actions to shape culture, culture just happens and it'll become what it is.
Yes.
And that might lead you on a path down a river without an oar, heading toward a dead end or a cliff. And so, we've discussed in our home specifically that we want to be intentional about shaping culture, learning from the past and some of the cultural rhythms that we picked up from our families of origin, from our, our childhoods. But then also recognizing, well, what were some gaps? What were some opportunities? And what can we implement differently in our home? And we've been able to do that as a married couple without kids. And then now that we're parents, that's obviously, that brings a whole different framework of culture. So yeah, I'm excited to dig into this one.
Yeah, let's start right there. I mean, what sticks out about the culture of your home that you grew up in and your family of origin? Are there things that really kind of come to mind when you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because, I always joke around that we grew up in a sort of strict Cuban household, and that's very much kind of a, Hispanic culture kind of ism where, there's firmness and there's strictness. But the beautiful part about it, and the part that I really thank my parents for, is the way that we had such a reverence for the things of God and just even for the things that should have reverence. You know what I mean? Like we were raised to be, respectful of adults.
Yeah.
We were raised not to interrupt when they were speaking. We were raised to smile and say thank you when, being spoken to, even like down to little things like ordering at a restaurant, my parents would always be like, go ahead, order for yourself,
Yeah.
And I'd have to muster up the courage, like, I want the chicken fingers. Thank you, sir. But it developed, an independence in me really early. And so then back to the piece about reverence, like, I just feel like we had a very healthy idea of like what was sacred, and even like what was sacrilegious and what not to do or how not to act. And so I really appreciate that. At the time, I think we were like, oh my gosh, all these rules, this is so strict.
Yeah.
But I look back and I think, man, like that really put us on a straight and narrow where I really do feel like my parents raised really conscientious, thoughtful, respectful human beings and contributing, members of society because of that rule of life that we lived by, that at the time I just thought like, oh my gosh, this is so overkill. And now I'm like, I'd love to find a way to implement that in, in a modern context in 2025 and make all the tweaks that we need to make culturally. I look back fondly now in my late 30s on how we were raised. And I was like, man, that produced some good kids that like weren't about, goofing off and cutting up. And granted, my parents are watching this. They'll probably be like, you still found a way, child.
Sure,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, I think like, if nothing else, we knew when to turn it on and off. Like we were kind of crazy at home, but you brought us to church, you brought us to a public place, and we were like little angels, and we got all that feedback. And then my parents would be like rolling their eyes, like, you have no idea, when they'd get a compliment, like, oh, your kids are so wonderful. They're like, yeah. Well, they're asleep.
Tell that story. I think about when you share that particular example of like when you're out in public places, how you're treating others. What was that story about the tofu?
Oh my gosh.
That's a funny one.
That is hilarious. So we were at a party for my dad's work. It was his boss, and he had a nice house, and he was well-to-do, and he invited us over to their home for some sort of shindig. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, Christmas party or something.
Yeah, maybe a Christmas party. I was I was maybe around the age of like 9 or 10.
Okay.
And so this family apparently didn't eat meat, and I don't know if it was like a religious observation,
like Seventh-day Adventist or something.
Maybe they
like
were.
that.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. And my dad, worked in a hospital that was sort of founded by the Seventh-day Adventist group, and so that made more sense that you'd see that throughout the staff. So, anyways. We go to this party, and my parents gave us the usual rundown of like, hey, here are the rules, don't break anything in the house, don't run around.
Yeah.
And the food may be a little different. Now, this is coming from like a Cuban household where like every meal is like a protein that's probably like pork or steak or some red meat.
Sure.
Rice, black beans, tostones, just kind of like starchy, whatever. And then they're giving us this rundown like there may not be any of that here.
Yep.
And so we go to the party, and I'm looking around for food because it's kind of like this big, smorgasbord. And I see what looks to me like chicken, but it's like cubed. And I'm thinking like, okay, that doesn't look appetizing, but it looks like chicken.
Yeah.
So I grab some and I put it in my mouth and I start to chew. And immediately the mouthfeel just sends me.
Not quite chicken.
Sends me, to a dark place.
That's hilarious.
And I realized, it was at that moment he realized that I had just put tofu in my mouth the first time.
You probably didn't even know what that was.
Oh my God. No. I literally I had no frame of reference, and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
Is this food? Is this people? I just thought I was eating some horrible, mystery meat.
Well, in like early mid 90s, like veganism, vegetarianism, it wasn't what it is today.
Not
so
at
it's
all.
like seriously, you probably had never seen it or heard of it.
Absolutely not. But again, I'm remembering my training, and I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to show that I'm gagging or throw up in my hand or whatever. So I put it in my mouth. I'm looking around because I'm clearly being seen in public. And I think I go to the bathroom or around the corner where I can't be seen. I just baby bird it out of my mouth into my hand, and then I just put it in my pocket, and I just kept it there. And then I just avoided all other food at the party like the plague, because I was like, I've been tricked. I've been fooled.
Yeah.
It looked edible, but it wasn't, and I can't trust any other food-shaped item on these tables.
But yet you kept your manners.
But I kept my manners. I was not about to act a fool.
That's gross.
Yeah. And then when his boss asked me, how was everything? I was like, it's delicious. I just did the bow and the curtsy or whatever, and was just like, I would never sell my parents down the river like that. But dude, when we got, I wish I could remember the dialogue, it was so long ago, but I'm pretty sure that I fessed up, and I was like, yo, what was that cube stuff? It's in my pocket right now. And they were probably horrified. They're like, oh my God, who did anyone see you, upchuck that? I'm like, no, man, I played it cool. I know the rules.
Upchuck.
So,
oof,
yeah.
What a word.
Yeah. But hashtag honor your parents.
No, definitely that reverence, that respect, that those manners you guys had instilled in you.
Yeah.
And I can say that from knowing you and your brothers for many, many years, you were always the boys that would open the doors for girls. I mean, always very well-mannered, young men, and of course, grown men now as well.
Yeah.
But that definitely was something that I think your family was really marked by, being just well-raised.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's something that stuck out from the culture of your home. One of the things that I think about when I think of my upbringing is making very simple things very special.
Yeah.
I think that my mom especially had such a gift for that. My dad too, really. They both did things that really like were ingrained in our memories. And when I think back, they were such simple little activities or things, but they made much of it.
Sure.
And I think there's something so special about that. I was recently reading in the Proverbs, the scripture that says, better a small serving of vegetables with love than a fattened calf with hatred.
Wow.
And it emphasizes that spiritual harmony and love are more valuable than material abundance or lavish meal, even if it's simple. I think that's a perfect description of what my parents were doing. There was a lot of love and a lot of intentionality around the things that they did with us as kids.
Yeah.
They were simple things, but they became very special. So some of those for me were like making holidays special, like the times that we would bake Christmas cookies. Like I remember that being a whole thing of us
Nice.
3 kids being in the kitchen with my mom and
Yeah.
doing all the different recipes, decorating the house for the holidays. My mom always was very creative with just like going to the fabric store, getting different things to make different curtains, and with few materials, just like going a great length with like the creativity of it all.
Making it happen.
Also home videos. My mom would always make a home video of us kids throughout like the weeks of Christmas break. And then she
Nice.
would send it to her parents, to my grandparents, because they lived in Florida and we lived
Yeah.
up north. And so that was always really fun. But again, just intentional with like the moments, capturing them, making something of it. And the last one I'll say is going on drives as a family. Like when there was just nothing else to do, it'd be like, let's hop in the car. And my dad would call it like a magical mystery tour. Like
Yeah.
shout out to the Beatles.
Yeah.
But we would just like drive and he would just end up taking us somewhere random. But we just thought it was so fun because he made something of it.
Yeah.
So I love that concept of making much of little things and just putting love behind what you do. And there being something really sweet and rich in that, even if it's not extravagant.
Yeah, I can resonate with that on our end as well, where my parents were really good at making much of little. You know, sometimes when you're younger and maybe, you know, you're growing up in a stage of your parents' lives that, you know, you look back as a kid and you were like, oh my God, it was so extravagant. I never lacked for anything. But then you talk to them and they were like, oh my gosh, that season of life, like we were struggling in this way or that way or
but
financially.
they didn't
or whatever.
show it.
They never showed it.
Right.
And so I always, literally, my current day love of architecture and design, I think, was spurred on by so many of just the random drives through nice neighborhoods in town where we would just like, you know, look out the window and be like, oh my gosh, look at that beautiful home, or look at that building, or this or that. And just appreciating and just driving together. We would go to like, you know, department stores or like rooms to go and just you know, go and like lay on mattresses. And I was like, this is so awesome. Like,
totally.
And as a kid, I mean, you see that and you hear that in memes and stuff where it's like, all a kid really needs is the cardboard box of the toy. You know what I mean? And it's so true. And so I think like our parents did a really great job of, you know, just finding creative ways to keep us entertained that didn't require lavish, you know, money and vacations and trips and things like that. And that's something that like, as we look to the culture that we're going to form, I want to preserve that, even as God blesses us. And even as we might be able to, you know, live in a way that our parents couldn't because they crawled so we could run, so to speak.
Sure.
I want to keep that simplicity of like taking the drives and, you know, playing in the, like even our son, like, you know, we were just talking a couple of episodes ago about Love Every and how, you know, they send all these beautiful Montessori toys. And, you know, there's a little mirror with a plastic clip where he can look at himself or whatever. And he just loves the clip that the mirror sits on. Like that is, it's a little stand that I find in his hand more than all the other toys.
So true.
And I'm like, dude, babies are all the same. Like we're all just so mesmerized by the most simple things. And it's an important lesson, you know, that like that really is all you need sometimes. It's just like that simple bit of creativity and love and intentionality to mark a moment and to make something special when maybe it wouldn't be otherwise.
Yes, it is that. It's creativity. And I think both of our moms were teachers, which brings some of that out. Your mom actually just sent me something the other day. It was like 10 different like toy activities you can make with like household items.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's just that. It's being creative and using what you have and being resourceful. And there's so much that we can learn and glean in that, I think.
Yeah, that's good.
Another one for me was prayer and devotion. This was something that Two key things stand out to me: the morning and the night. I remember my mom, when she was a teacher and we went to school with her in the mornings, she would have this like family devotion book, and at the kitchen counter when we were eating breakfast, she would read one for the day, and we would say a prayer before we left for school that day. But then also in the evenings, mostly when I was real young, because I always had a hard time falling asleep, she would lay beside me in bed and she would sing hymns and choruses and always say a prayer, before bed. But it was really the singing before bed that was just setting this sweet atmosphere for sleep. And that really stands out to me as something that was very impactful in my upbringing. And, I know we're going to talk more about what we want to bring into our own.
Yeah.
But that's definitely something that I hold near and dear to this day.
Kind of segueing, what do you feel like you and I have already cultivated in our home, in terms of culture? Like, is there anything that you're like, oh, this sticks out on something that I'm really proud of, or, something that I've noticed that we've actually created?
I think as husband and wife, something that we've focused on the last, 8 or 9 years has been really cultivating a space of peace, a space of rest within our home. I think it's something that we have wanted for, of course, ourselves to come home and, be at peace, be at rest, and enjoy our space. But also when people come here to be with us within our home, we want them to feel at peace too. And for that to almost be something that we're gifting to them. Like, hey, here's just some peace that you can take with you after you've spent time here.
Yeah,
I think when you think of your home and your culture, you do want to ask yourself, like, what do you want people to feel when they enter the door?
Yeah.
What do you want people to feel while they're here, when they leave? What does that impact? Because it's just like if you visit somewhere, like if you visit another country, there's a feel and an impact that you get from being in a different environment. Around a different people group. And I think that's the same thing when someone comes into your home. They get to experience your family. So I think for us as husband and wife, that's something that we've focused on, is like an atmosphere of peace. How do you set that? I'm big on atmosphere. How do you set that atmosphere? Like lights, scents, the cleanliness.
Yeah.
What are the things that you put into motion to, cultivate a space
Don't get
of
me
peace?
Started on lights, girl.
Yeah, tell them about what you like to do with cultivating an environment within your home.
So one of my longest held dreams before we bought a home was to, make the home smart and jump into the Internet of Things and the connected home and all of that.
I think that all started with the Disney Channel original Smart House.
Yes.
Shout out to that one, all my other 90s kids.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I won't go into the full suite of things that I did, but one of the big ones was replacing every single light bulb in the entire home with Philips Hue smart bulbs that are all, connected via Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and all that. And they're all sort of like ambience, they're on a spectrum of ambience from, warm to cold.
Yes, we love the warm.
We love the warm. Well, but hey, here's the thing. There's a time and a place for both temperatures.
Okay.
So right now, as we're recording, it's more cool because it's a little closer to daylight. But at night, we definitely set it to where, it goes nice and warm. And so I won't do it now because literally Google will, activate it.
Right.
But, we have a Google Home where we're like, hey, whatever.
Hey, you know who?
Yeah. Hey, you know who? Activate, relax in the common area. And so, or really all we need to say is like, hey, so-and-so, I'm home.
Right.
And it just like the temperature gets set, the lights get to this perfect warmth and ambience. Some of the speakers turn on with some music.
Yep.
Just all the things start to get right. And, if you've ever been in a place like a hotel or a hospital or something like that, where it's just like super bright fluorescence and you're like,
yes,
when the lights are on, it's too bright, but then when it's off, I can't see.
Right.
Like that to me it's a pet peeve. It sounds silly. It sounds bougie. It is what it is.
Right.
I can't turn it off. And so I'm a sucker for a dimmer, basically.
Yeah.
And so, but I press you to ask anyone that has come to our house who has not enjoyed the benefit of this control, where they're like, wow, that's so cozy in here. Like, what is that? And I'm like, that's right. Ask Google. Yeah, we're so used to this way of life that now we'll go to other places to stay, hotels and Airbnbs, and just
Catch
instinctually, yeah, I'll be like uttering to the air, like, hey, Google, do this or that for me. And then no one responds back. And I'm like, oh yeah, sorry.
Oh, you're not here for me.
Yeah.
So outside of setting a physical environment and putting those elements in place for a peaceful stay within the home, what other things have we been intentional to cultivate within the culture of our home?
Yeah, well, I think this is sort of an extension of the concept of peace. And I think it's our communication style. I feel like we've done some intentional work to have a open, honest, peace-filled, non-high decibel level communication style. Now, obviously, we get along famously, and major confrontation is not something that we're experiencing super often in the house. However, we've even taken some classes and gone through some groups and read some books and done some intentional work to make sure that the way we communicate is balanced, is working toward unity and harmony. And if we can't get to a place of unity because maybe we're just really, disagreeing on something big, then at least working toward neutrality, where it's like, okay, I may not be in alignment with this thing, but I'm going to just stay neutral and wait here and ask the Lord, invite the Lord into this so that, we can find unity again, as opposed to coming at it where it's like, I want to win. No, I want to win, and just recognizing that hey, we're on the same team. We're in the same car and we're just at a fork. And we're not going to get out of the car until we decide which direction to go together. And so I think that that's been a huge sort of cultural pillar where we don't yell, we don't lose control, we don't lose our cool.
Yeah, or talk disrespectfully.
Yeah.
I think.
We're really conscious, I think, about not using words like always and never and those types of, sort of
strong language.
Strong incendiary kind of words.
It really boxes the other in.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, even when we're communicating our feelings toward each other, it's such a important and yet small shift to say, hey, when you do this or you did this, it made me feel like this, as opposed to you always do this. And
like accusatory.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
we try to be careful about that, attacking language.
And sometimes, and I feel like I'm in this seat more often than not, the way that I'm feeling might not really be justified, or it might be sort of an immature response. And so by wording it that way, you're kind of also admitting hey, I may be well in the wrong here, but when you did this, it triggered my brain to feel this. And I just want to put that out there so that you understand where I'm coming from, so that we can diffuse the situation and move on toward, peace.
Yeah. It's interesting. I do think all of these things come back to that cultural value of peace. Yeah. The other thing I think of as well as something we've learned in time is also that you don't have to solve things right in the moment.
Yeah, sure.
There's, scripture that says don't let the sun go down on your anger. And I think in the beginning of our marriage, we took that so to heart that it was we'd stay up till 4 a.m. trying to figure something out. And that was not that we've really had many fights, true fights, but the couple that I could count were those probably really early on ones where we were trying to come to a perfect conclusion into the night. Yeah. And I think there is some wisdom with being able to put it on the shelf and say hey, let's come back to this tomorrow.
When we're fresh,
be intentional,
and rested,
not go to bed angry, but be able to say hey, I'm still working through this and I still want to talk more, but let's come back to it, in 24 hours or 12 hours, or let's get some sleep. Let's sleep on it. And so, I think there is definitely a common thread there of peace. You said a lot of the ones that I had listed down, but another one that I wanted to mention was just even that environment of worship. So when you think about worship, what you give worth to, I think about just even the type of music that we play in the house. We're pretty intentional, I would say, of usually having a worship type style of music on. Yeah. Sometimes we'll throw in a little country ditty.
Oh God, don't let them know. Don't let them know.
We've never been into country, but we're in our country era.
We're in our country era.
But no, usually we'll have something that's turning our eyes, turning our hearts towards God. And I love that too, because again, it's just what is in the airwaves of your house is definitely affecting the environment. And I just had put down as well how we speak, and you kind of covered that, yelling, and having an openness to share and be heard. I think a genuine curiosity within the home of how are you? And like really wanting to listen to each other.
That's good.
Is something I think that we've valued and cultivated.
That's good.
So we've covered what the culture of our home has been with the two of us here.
Yeah.
But now that we're expanding our family, we have a son now, we're thinking more so of how do we want to cultivate culture within our family as it grows.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things for you that are top of mind?
Yeah, I think simply, I just want our son to see us active in our disciplines, you know? So the things that we're already doing, I want to do them consistently. And I want him to take notice, because I think a lot of the things that we've set in place are healthy things that even he can glean from and take on. It's not just contextual to a married couple. A lot of the things are like, you know, seeing us active in the way we take our health seriously, the things that we put into our body, into our temple, so to speak. You know, the way we exercise, the way we spend time in the mornings, you know, with the Lord and in quiet time and reading and prayer or journaling. And then, you know, some of the ways that the way that we communicate with each other, the way we're affectionate toward each other. Like, I just really want him to take note of all that and be a witness to some of these intentional rules of life, so to speak, that we've put in place, and hope that he, you know, grabs inspiration just like we did. I mean, like, we're sitting here talking about these things that our parents did that we were cognizant of and took note of. And so for me, there's not a whole lot of like net new things necessarily that I want to do. I just want to keep doing a lot of the stuff that we've, you know, already cultivated.
Consistency.
And just do it consistently in front of him so that he recognizes what's valuable and what's fruitful.
Yeah. Children are so observant. And I see that all the time with him, even as young as he is. It's like he is watching and taking everything in. And so that's such a good point, just to continue to be intentional. And I even want to just say, like, very realistically, there's probably people listening that are like, oh, I'm 3 kids deep and everything I used to do has gone out the window.
Totally.
Because I can see how easily the things that you've done and practiced as a single person or as just a married couple, you know, they can just get swept away because it's such a life change to have children. And I mean, we're speaking again humbly because we just have one, but it changes everything. And so I just want to speak to that person that might be like, man, I'm not doing any of the things I want to be doing. Just, I think focusing really simply and doing what you can in a new way, but still intentionally. Like, I even think about the way that I like do my morning devotion and reading the word and journaling. In this season, it looks different than it did before. And that's okay. Like, I think letting things change, but also keeping the core values there. So I hope it's encouraging to that person that's maybe feeling like they're drowning and not where they once were. That, you know, slowly and step by step, it's establishing a culture within the reality that you have now.
And I think you can make a hard reset or even a soft reset, you know. For, like you said, that's a great point to speak to maybe some of the listeners who are like, guys, this is all cute in practice, but like when you're 3, 4, 7 kids deep, or you know, you've got a unique household because maybe we're a blended family and there's just cultural differences that are clashing every single day. You know, obviously we don't know anything about that, but I think what can be encouraging is to recognize that you know, you can start today. You can start at any point being intentional from a new perspective where, you know, maybe your children have never seen you spend time in the Word or this or that. But I'm just thinking about our son and how, like, it could be as simple as, you know, it's not like I'm setting up my desk and hoping, like, you know, I'm doing something very pious and I'm like, oh, you caught me. I'm just talking to the God of the universe. No big deal. You know, but like if I'm going on a walk, you know, and I cannot wait for this moment where he is actually cognizant and, like, you know, mature enough to form thoughts and communicate back to me. But it's even just inviting him in to be like, hey, bud, for like 5 minutes on our walk, we're going to say some things that we're thankful for. Do you want to join daddy in that? You know, and it's those small things that I think you can start to change the culture and, again, invite a new way of doing things in your household. And it can be as small as that, just like 3 things you're thankful for. Go, everybody go, you know? And now you've got this gratitude pulsing through your family. And, I think that has the power to change an atmosphere, change an environment and the temperature of the room, and then eventually change a whole culture. So I think it can really, really be small intentional steps. And it doesn't have to be this, like, again, this overarching pious way of living that you feel like, you know what, I'm too far gone. I'm just going to let them have all the screen time and I'm going to feel guilty about it. And, I'm just going to go to bed because I'm exhausted. Yeah. It doesn't have to be like that,
I think you hit it on the head. It's not trying to get back to where you were like before children.
Yeah.
It's just about inviting them into that core value and how do you do it together?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, challenging, but definitely a refreshing perspective of like, how do we maintain culture or grow culture within a growing family?
Absolutely.
A couple other quick ones I'll just run through. I definitely want to cultivate a culture of fun moments. I think we say that all the time. We look forward to like doing just like my parents did, making those very simple things very fun. You said your parents did the same. I definitely want to carry that on. Togetherness, meaning doing things together, like not just all being dispersed throughout the house doing separate things, but like having intentional family time, playing a game together, watching something together, being together, like you said, going on a walk together. Hospitality, and I'll say this word as well, safety, meaning like just when people come here, I want them to feel safe, and I want us to be able to practice hospitality as a family. So there's nothing weird on the television, whether people are here or not. Like it's always a safe environment, and there's nothing that people are going to leave here thinking like, oh, I wish I didn't encounter that within that home. Like there's a purity within the home. Honesty, meaning like just like you and I can communicate honestly. Like I want our son or any other future children to be able to be open and honest. And I think that that's cultivated with, not coming down really hard on each other, but giving an ear to listen and, meeting someone where they are. I put simplicity and imagination because imagination is something I feel like my mom really cultivated within us kids, using different like characters and voices and things like that. That's just like ingrained within. We already were practicing that this week as we've been introducing solid foods to the baby. We were basically playing restaurant as we introduced different foods to our son, and I'm having more fun than anybody.
We were like, sir, business or pleasure? Pleasure? Oh, of course, dare I ask?
Yes.
May I interest you in a saucy bit of avocado? And he like grabs it on the wrong end of the spoon. He's just like throws it. I'm like, oh, cool.
It's been messy and fun. And the last one is God-centeredness. So you mentioned it. I think I said it as well, as really sharing faith within the home, praying about things quickly when something's wrong. Why don't we turn to God in prayer? Reading the Bible together, setting that example for devotion, and spiritual disciplines, just starting really young. I think that that's really special. You train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're older, they won't depart from it. I love that proverb, and it definitely rings true for both of us of what we shared today. I mean, there's things in us today because our parents did them over and over and over again and created a culture within our homes.
I think the last thing I'll say is, one cultural thing that I really want to implement when our son gets old enough is to sort of have like a family creed or like a family value set, something that we can almost memorize, or maybe even, I could say it as like a family vision or mission statement, something that sort of binds us to, a set of practices and a set of beliefs where, we're outlining the things that are important to us, and that can, almost be this fun sort of like memorization exercise where it's like, we are Lopez's and we do this and we do that.
Yeah.
And,
it's kind of like affirmation statements in the morning.
We've got some close friends that have done the same, that have been an inspiration to us on that regard.
Yes.
And so just, to do it sincerely, not cheesily, and not to put some, over the top, like 50-page manifesto together, but really just something that actually functions as a framework for how, he approaches life and how we all approach life, because I think I think about this through the lens of CEO Gabe and entrepreneurial Gabe. When you have a vision and when you have a mission, it binds the culture together, and, where there is no vision, people perish, and so that's a true statement across every single environment.
It is.
And so I think in family, all the more when we're like so locked in on our core beliefs and the things that are important to us, I just think that there's going to be a higher likelihood of success as a family. And so I'm excited to implement that.
I'm excited to practice this intentionally with you, again, as our family's growing, to be cognizant of carrying on culture, growing culture, cultivating it in a way that is really meaningful for the generations to come. Mm-hmm. So hopefully this particular topic hit home with you guys. Listeners, if you want to leave a comment of something that is a cultural value within your home,
I'd love to see that.
Love to share those with each other, or something that you want to make a cultural value within your home. It's not too late to do that. So, all right. Mm-hmm. This is another episode of Quality Time with Gabe and Grace.
Yeah. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, YouTube, all the things, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.
Time for love again. My time for love is you.